We collect the stories, polish them, and present them as proof of who someone really was. But the truest measure of a person rarely comes through a camera lens or a prepared statement. It arrives in those unguarded moments when nobody's taking notes, when there's nothing to gain, and the world isn't watching. This is a story about exactly that kind of moment. It happened on a film location in northern Mexico, and it took nearly a quarter century for anyone to understand what it actually meant. Imagine yourself back in October 1959. You're working on a Hollywood production that's been shot almost entirely away from the studio, out in the real world, where the dust gets into everything, where the heat doesn't care about your schedule, and where a single accident can unravel months of planning. The crew is tired, the equipment is breaking down, the director is behind schedule. Everyone on set is running on coffee, adrenaline, and the increasingly fragile hope that they'll finish before something goes catastrophically wrong. Then something does. The infrastructure of a major film production in the 1950s relied on a specific class of worker that history barely remembers, not the actors. Those names lived forever in marquee lights, not even the directors or cinematographers whose artistic vision shaped what audiences saw. No, the people who actually made the system function were the technicians, the logistics coordinators, the skilled tradespeople who could solve problems under pressure and keep everything moving forward. Among these invisible architects of cinema was a man named Miguel Reyes. He wasn't credited. His name appeared nowhere in the opening crawl or the closing credits. But on any given day, the entire operation depended on his particular expertise. Miguel was in his mid-40s with the weathered face of someone who'd spent nearly 2 decades in the sun, working around animals that didn't understand patience or excuses. He had a gift, not the kind that gets celebrated at award ceremonies, but the kind that other professionals immediately recognize and respect. He understood horses in a way that went beyond technique. He moved around them with a kind of calm certainty that put them at ease. No wasted motions, no unnecessary noise, just a man and an animal reaching a quiet understanding. This was his language, and he spoke it fluently. His son Carlos was learning the trade, 16 years old, strong in the way that comes from a lifetime of physical work, and quiet like his father, the kind of quiet that suggests depth rather than shyness. That particular morning, Carlos was helping move a string of animals across the terrain for an upcoming camera sequence. It was routine work, the kind of thing that happened dozens of times per shoot, the kind of thing that nobody anticipated would alter everything. What happened in the next few seconds unfolded in that strange slow-motion way that accidents do, clear and crystalline in memory. Though at the time it probably lasted less than 5 seconds. One of the animals spooked. The trigger could have been anything, a shadow, an unexpected sound from the equipment, the way light hit the ground at an unusual angle. Animals don't always need a logical reason to react. Sometimes they just do. The horse lurched. Carlos went down. His arm absorbed the impact at an angle that bone simply wasn't designed to accommodate. The sound of it breaking carried across the dry riverbed, audible from 30 feet away, the kind of sound that makes everyone on set suddenly stop what they're doing. By the time Miguel reached his son, Carlos was pale and still. The arm was broken badly. Not the kind of break that might heal with a week of rest and careful attention. This was serious. This was going to require actual medical intervention, real doctors, probably surgery. This was going to cost money. Now enter the other character this story needs, Harlan Cross. He was the location manager, which meant he was responsible for the thousands of logistical decisions that allowed a major production to function outside of controlled studio environments. He was efficient in a way that bordered on ruthless. He'd been running film operations in Mexico for over a decade, and he understood the system better than almost anyone alive. When something went wrong on a set he managed, Cross had already anticipated the problem and prepared the response. He arrived at the accident scene before the dust had fully settled. He looked at Carlos on the ground. He looked at his watch, and then he made a decision that was, from a strictly business perspective, entirely defensible and completely routine. The boy had been working outside his designated area, Cross explained. Company insurance didn't cover unauthorized movement of livestock. It was all right there in the paperwork. As it happened, Cross had the relevant documents already prepared. All Miguel needed to do was sign at the bottom, and in exchange, the company would cover transportation to the nearest clinic. Nothing more. No hospital bills. No recovery costs. No ongoing medical expenses. This was the bargain being offered to a man whose son was lying injured in the dirt. Miguel looked at the paper. His hands weren't shaking from anger. It was something quieter than that. something more fundamental. This was the moment when a person realizes how little protection exists between them and catastrophe. He understood exactly what was being asked of him. Sign this and he releases the company from any further obligation. Don't sign it. And he's off the payroll by sundown. The hospital in the nearest city cost money that Miguel had never held at one time, not in a single moment, not altogether. He was being asked to choose between his dignity and his son's health, except the choice had already been made for him. He was just being given the pen to formalize it. But there was a witness to this transaction that neither Miguel nor Cross had fully accounted for. 40 feet away, standing near one of the camera dollies, was John Wayne. He'd been on this location for 3 weeks. He knew Miguel by name. He'd watched this man work every single day. And he understood, the way that genuinely skilled people understand each other, that he was looking at someone who had mastered his craft. Not through publicity or self-promotion, but through 30 years of showing up, paying attention, and doing the same thing correctly over and over again until it became invisible to everyone except those who truly understood what they were seeing. Wayne didn't move yet. He was watching. 15 feet beyond him, leaning against an equipment wagon with a cigarette burning slowly between his fingers, was Henry Fonda. Fonda and Wayne weren't close friends, not in the way that meant they socialized or confided in each other. They were cordial, which in Hollywood meant they maintained the appearance of respect, while their actual beliefs ran in almost entirely opposite directions. Their politics, their philosophies, the things they believed about the world and America's place in it, all of that diverged pretty sharply. But out here on a Mexican film location, distant from studios and publicity departments and all the machinery that usually mediated their relationship, none of that mattered much yet. Fonda saw what Wayne was seeing. He watched Cross holding out the pen. He watched Miguel's hand move toward it. The thing about choosing to intervene is that you have to accept full responsibility for that choice. You can't do it halfway. You can't do it for credit or recognition. You have to do it because something inside you won't accept the alternative, and the cost of that refusal is worth paying. Wayne made that choice in the space of maybe 3 seconds. He pushed off from the camera dolly. He didn't walk fast. He didn't raise his voice. He simply began moving across the dirt with the kind of unhurried certainty that makes people stop what they're doing and pay attention. He stopped 2 feet from Cross. "Hold on," he said, just that. 2 words. But Cross stopped. The pen stopped. Miguel looked up. Cross recovered with the professionalism of someone who had handled difficult situations before. He explained the insurance situation, walking through the legal language with the calm, reasonable tone of someone who had rehearsed this conversation many times. He explained why this was simply how things worked on location shoots in foreign countries. He explained it all without anger, without defensiveness, just the facts of the situation as he understood them. Wayne listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look away. When Cross finished his explanation, Wayne was quiet for a moment. Then he looked directly at the man in front of him. "The horses don't move without him," Wayne said. "We shoot tomorrow morning. You want to tell me who's working the corral?" This was the moment when the situation shifted from abstract principle into concrete problem. Cross didn't answer right away. He was running calculations in his head. 12 horses still on set, 3 days of shooting remaining. The director's already pushed schedule. The budget reports that would need to go back to the studio in Los Angeles explaining every delay. He was trying to figure out if what Wayne was suggesting was actually possible. And if it wasn't possible, then what exactly his alternatives were. He looked back at Wayne. Wayne hadn't changed his expression. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't performing for anyone. He was simply standing there, waiting for Cross to finish thinking, the way you wait for a slow door to open. "This isn't your business," Cross said. His voice was still flat, but something underneath it had shifted. "The horses are my business," Wayne replied. "The man who handles them is my business." Cross took the papers back. He said something under his breath that Wayne didn't acknowledge. Then he walked back toward the production trailers without another word. Wayne watched him go, then turned and walked back toward the camera without looking at Miguel. There was something deliberate about that, not looking back, not turning it into a moment, just handling the problem and moving on. Miguel stood in the middle of the corral with his hat in one hand and his son 40 miles away in a clinic. He had kept his job, though he didn't yet understand what that would have cost him if he'd lost it. He still didn't know how he would pay the hospital bill. He didn't understand that the question had already been decided. He put his hat back on. He returned to work. This is what men like Miguel Reyes do. They keep working because stopping is a luxury they can't afford. The afternoon shoot ran long. The sun dropped behind the ridgeline before the director finally called the last cut of the day. The crew dispersed. Men drifted toward the mess tent. The horses were walked back to the corral. The dust settled slowly in the cooling air. Miguel worked through all of it, methodical, thorough, the way he'd done it 1,000 times before. But his mind was somewhere else entirely. His mind was in a clinic in Durango, wondering about costs he was afraid to calculate. He finished with the horses and walked toward the bunkhouse. He passed Wayne's tent and stopped. He'd been thinking about this all afternoon. Whether he should say something, whether a man like John Wayne would want to be thanked by someone like Miguel Reyes. He decided that he owed it to his son to at least try. He knocked on the wooden post at the tent entrance. Wayne was sitting on a camp chair with his boots off, reading something. He looked up. Miguel took his hat off. He spoke carefully in the slow English he'd been building over 18 years of film sets. "Senor Wayne, this morning, what you did, I want to say." Wayne raised one hand slightly, not a dismissal, just a pause. He reached to the small table beside his chair. There was a plain envelope there. He picked it up and held it toward Miguel. Miguel didn't take it at first. He looked at it. He looked at the man holding it. "I can't," he said. "Your boy needs to get well," Wayne said. "That is all. This is one of those moments that transforms someone, not alone, not charity with conditions attached, not kindness that expects something in return. Just one person deciding that another person's problem was worth solving and having the means to actually do something about it." Miguel took the envelope. His hands were steady, but his jaw was tight. He nodded once. He put his hat back on. He walked away into the dark. Wayne picked up what he was reading. Henry Fonda stepped out from the shadow beside the tent. He'd been there long enough to see what happened, long enough to understand what was in the envelope without asking. He looked in the direction Miguel had walked. Then he looked at Wayne. Wayne didn't look up from his reading. "You didn't have to do that," Fonda said. There was a long pause. "No," Wayne said, "I didn't." Fonda stood there another moment. He nodded, almost to himself. Then he walked back toward the mess tent without another word. The two men never discussed it again. Not that night. Not during the remaining weeks of the shoot. Not in the years that followed when they moved in different circles, voted for different candidates, gave interviews where journalists asked them carefully loaded questions about each other, and answered in ways that revealed nothing. What happened outside that tent in Durango became something that both of them carried in silence. The next morning, the set came alive before dawn. Coffee, equipment, the sound of horses moving in the corral. Miguel was there before anyone else. The horses were fed and brushed and ready before the first camera crew arrived. He worked without speaking. There was something different in the way he moved now. Not slower, not heavier, just more deliberate. Like a man who'd spent the night reconsidering everything he thought he knew about other people, and what it meant to live in a world where some of them still chose to do the right thing. Wayne arrived on set at 6:15. He didn't look in Miguel's direction. He took his mark. He drank his coffee. He did his job. At some point during the morning break, Miguel walked past the camera dolly and stopped. Wayne was reviewing some script pages. "My son will be fine," Miguel said simply. Wayne looked up. He nodded once. He went back to his pages. That was the entire conversation. That was all that needed to be said. Fonda was watching from 20 feet away. He saw the exchange. He saw how brief it was. He saw Wayne return to the pages like nothing had happened, like a man who had given away money last night, the way other men give away small change, without keeping track of it or expecting acknowledgement. Fonda turned away. He'd been in this industry for 3 decades. He'd known many famous men. He'd seen generosity that came with press releases and photographers, and generosity that arrived in dark envelopes without anyone to witness it. He knew the difference, and this was the latter kind. He filed the memory away in a place he didn't often access. He filed it very carefully. 23 years passed. It's 1982 now, the spring, and Henry Fonda is 76 years old. He's not in good health. He's giving what will turn out to be one of his last major interviews before he passes away. The journalist asks the question that journalists have been asking for decades, whenever two famous men have spent their careers on opposite sides of every meaningful divide. What did you really think of John Wayne? Fonda is quiet for a long time. Long enough that the journalist wonders if he's pushed too far, if he's crossed some line that Fonda isn't willing to cross. Then Fonda looks up. He seems to be looking at something very far away. "There was a night in Durango," he says. 1959. "We were shooting The Horse Soldiers. An accident happened on set. A young man got hurt. The production company tried to avoid responsibility, but there was someone there who understood what responsibility actually meant. Fonda tells the story slowly, the way a man tells something he's been carrying for a long time and is finally ready to put down. He describes standing in the shadow outside the tent, watching. He describes the envelope, the quiet conversation, the two words that Wayne said, "Your boy needs to get well." "We disagreed about almost everything," Fonda says. "Politics, the war, so many things that seemed important. But that night, I understood something about him that I hadn't before. There are men who talk about what's right, and there are men who just do it when nobody's watching." Duke didn't need anyone to see him. He just needed to be able to live with himself. The journalist asks if they ever spoke about it afterward. "Never," Fonda says. "That was the other thing. He didn't want to talk about it. That was the whole point." Henry Fonda died 4 months later on August 12, 1982. The interview was published the following October. Most people who read it focused on other things. The part about Durango was 3 paragraphs buried near the end. Some things take longer to find their audience. 36 years after that night in Durango, it's 1995. Carlos Reyes is 52 years old. His arm healed completely. No lasting damage, just a scar, and the memory of the night his father came back from the film set with a solution to a problem that seemed unsolvable. Carlos spent his 20s working the same sets his father worked, learning everything Miguel could teach him. By his mid-30s, he'd saved enough to lease a small parcel of land outside Durango. By his 40s, he owned it. The ranch isn't large, 16 horses, a handful of hired hands, work that fills every day from before sunrise to after dark. But there's something on the wall just inside the entrance of the main barn. A plain wooden frame, glass front, hung at eye level so that everyone who walks through that door will see it. Inside the frame is a small piece of paper, folded once and then unfolded. The handwriting is large and unhurried, 2 lines only. No date, no signature. "Do good work, that's enough," Carlos's daughter asked him once who wrote it. He told her the story. She asked if it was really from John Wayne. He said he didn't need it to be from anyone in particular. He just needed to remember what it felt like the night a stranger handed his father something with no expectation of gratitude, no requirement of secrecy, no demand for acknowledgement. He just needed to remember that the world still contained people who understood that solving half a problem isn't solving the problem, that a boy in a clinic needed his father to walk back through that door with something more than just his job intact. Wayne could have walked back to his chair and kept reading. Nobody was watching. The crisis had been resolved. The job was saved. That would have been enough for most people. But Wayne reached for that envelope because he understood something that grows harder and harder to find in the world. Solving half a problem is not solving the problem. A boy in a clinic in Durango needed more than just his father's employment status. He needed medical care. He needed his father to come back and say that everything would be okay, and have it actually be true. Wayne didn't do it for credit. He didn't do it for a story. He did it because it was the right thing to do, and he had the means to do it, and to him that was the only reason that mattered. That is the kind of man he was. That is the kind of man we rarely see anymore, and maybe that's why we need to remember the ones we do see, and carry their example forward.